It seems that almost everyone on the planet is in agreement that, yeah, season 1 of Arcane is pretty good to say the least. So let's talk about it for over 15 minutes. I'm assuming you've watched the show, and if not, go do it right now and come back, or else you won't understand anything. Got it? Okay, here we go. The first thing that made a gigantic impression on me, of course, were the visuals. This show looks offensively good. It's ridiculous how beautiful each frame is. Everything from the characters' faces and outfits to the buildings and environment is so detailed that it actually felt a little weird to look at more minimalistic art styles afterwards. That, the diverse color palette and the cel shading combined with just how many objects and people are in every single shot in the first place works very well for the whole busy steampunk aesthetic. The show doesn't have that one visually stunning sequence in that one certain episode, it's what the whole show is, no matter how minor the scene. The effects on the other hand, such as the explosions and fires and falling dust, are done in a more minimalistic but still beautiful style, which makes for a cool contrast. There are a lot of details in each shot to notice on rewatches as well, like the various match cuts or the visual storytelling. For example, the scribbles Jinx made on Silco's desk, which show that he just lets her do what she wants, and the simple metaphors such as how Victor gets covered up by Jesse's mug in that one shot. How characters moved also was especially satisfying and kind of hypnotizing. Every movement feels so powerful. There will be these very quick swerving shots and a lot of moves will start off normal and suddenly take off, even outside fights. It's never very predictable. The whole choreography isn't, and it makes it so engaging to look at. I caught myself many times just thinking that was cool as fuck, and then rewinding to see it again like 5 times. Same with the scribbles that appear when Jinx is in distress or all the other kind of trippy visuals. As a whole, the fights are also very realistic, and each character's design was very unique too. A lot of their facial features were pretty exaggerated at times, which adds to it. They're so good you could have shown me literally anyone and I would have probably said, yep, that's the main character, although this guy is obviously the best. This show is not afraid to show crying or angry characters in really dramatic ways as well, with the visuals, which I appreciate so much. It's almost never done this well. The voice acting obviously helps too, and that on its own is amazing for almost every character. The soundtrack was very unique and consistent too when it comes to quality. Otherwise, we get all kinds of genres in this show. Basically, in its presentation, Arcane is a masterpiece from start to finish. Not only the animation style in fact, but the setting as a whole is very unique and ambitious to pull off visually. But what about everything else? The first act solidifies Jinx as kind of a fuck up, which isn't surprising for a young kid that's forced to live a life of crime. Vi, on the other hand, is the older, reliable sister that cuts her slack for literally everything. The show does a very good job at getting us invested in the stories of these two girls and how they're going to turn out, and we really start caring for them. But then the big fuck up happens. Jinx tries to help the others save Vander, killing all of them but Vi in the process with her grenade. Jinx doesn't see any of this and actually thought she helped, and neither did Vi realize it was her sister who caused the explosion. So when they come across each other, Vi standing over Vander's corpse, and they quickly make sense of the situation, let's just say it's an extremely traumatic moment. Vi forgives her for her fuck-ups, but this is the one time that's just not the same, especially since she told her not to come here in the first place. And for Jinx, this is her worst nightmare. You can tell how much she hoped Vi can forgive her. It's the only time she pleads like this, using Violet's full name. But it doesn't help. She lost what is basically her family once again after already losing her actual parents, and Vi finally admits that she is a Jinx and abandons her. Vi, the only person that believed in her all along. Well, technically Vi tries to come back but gets captured, though Jinx doesn't know this, and yeah. And so, eager for another person to latch onto, she leaps into the hands of Silco, a complete stranger and what should be in her eyes a terrible person. This and the heartbreaking breakdown she had earlier when Vi told her she wasn't ready really hammer in how severe her feelings of inadequacy, separation anxiety and the like actually are. And I know I mentioned this already, but damn, how are they so good at animating faces, like fuck. However, and keep in mind that I do love this show, this is one of the multiple moments where things felt pretty rushed. We're only at the end of episode 3, Milo and Clagger are two characters I simply don't care about yet, though admittedly the final shot of Milo as the rocks buried him was done very well to garner a little bit of sympathy. But still, it feels like we've known them for like a couple of minutes, and with Clagger especially, I couldn't recall a single piece of dialogue or anything he did in fact after my first watch, besides body slam that guy in the fight. That was awesome. Milo could have easily been developed into a more likable character in my opinion instead of a one-dimensional annoying one. And to be honest, even Vander wasn't a character I personally ever warmed up to. He just seemed like somebody for the girls to lose. Jinx hasn't interacted with Vander yet other than that one time he poured her a drink, and even then it was a very short scene. And she isn't seen with Clagger once. Not to mention Benzo and Officer Grayson, who had the most random deaths ever a little earlier, which just did nothing for me at all. The deaths of characters that have barely been introduced simply don't hit hard for me. It works when a character kills a random person, like with Jason that kid in episode 8, but that's because the writing takes more of an emphasis on the act of killing a person and what it feels like, why you did it and what it makes you, rather than who the people you killed were. And this isn't the only rushed moment. Think about the fight between Jinx and Echo that comes later on. We get these flashbacks of how they used to be friends and look what they've turned into now. But the thing is, we don't have these interactions between them anywhere in the show other than the 1-second shot of Jinx showing Echo her grenade thing. They never interact in any way otherwise. Jinx fights the Fireflies multiple times, so we could have at least seen her kill somebody we later found out was Echo's friend or something like that. I know it's guaranteed that she's killed someone Echo knows, but still, the fight looks cool, of course it does, yet emotionally it just doesn't hit that well, excluding the final scuffle, though it's only because it was animated so damn brutally. And the scene where Sky dies, you know, the girl that, what did she do again? Nothing? Okay. Victor seems to have actually cared about her, calling out her name multiple times, but she's just somebody for Victor to lose and nobody at all when it comes to the story. Again, it's so much easier to feel that emotion when you've seen the characters interact with each other, and more importantly, when you care about the character too. I'm kind of stuck imagining what that scene is supposed to hit like instead of having it hit that way. Jace, on the other hand, gets expelled and talks with his mom, then tries talking to Caitlyn, but their parents don't respect him now, so he almost commits suicide. I guess he's supposed to feel powerless and at his wit's end and all, but couldn't we have taken a little more time to get here? We're still 3/4 through the episode he was introduced in. They try to cram a lot into such little time, and it's why some scenes like these, which are supposed to be important, never had a big impact on me. You need these small moments that lead up to the big thing for it to actually matter. And also, it made everything kind of hard to follow at times, especially since it was so subtle. I know this was done because it was literally movie quality animation for every single frame of its 6-hour runtime, but it's still my biggest gripe with the show, and trust me, it is a big one. There was no moment of silence, the show is always rushing, always trying to get to the next point of the story, and it's definitely irritating on the first watch. Also, when it comes to the plot, the whole hextech stuff and all of that in the top side wasn't the most interesting thing for me. It's not boring, and I appreciate they didn't just take random science words and throw them together to try and add more to the invention part, like a lot of stories do, but there wasn't much intrigue in the storyline either, so what is there? But let's get back to praising the show. What about the themes? The main theme is duality. Piltover and Zone, Jinx and Vi, but also Vi and Caitlyn, Silco and Vander, Meg and her mother, Jace and Victor, yet also Jace's advancement and Heimerdinger's stagnation. The conflicts in the show are not due to the fact that some are good people and others are evil people, it's because people are different. Nobody is evil for the sake of being evil here. There are no villains, just people with different outlooks and approaches to dealing with similar or even the same problems. Everybody has a point and a reason behind their actions, not only Silco but also Ambessa, Civica and so on. There were so many moments where I wasn't sure in the slightest what or who was right or wrong, and if there even was a correct answer. That's the biggest achievement of this duality, but of course we all like seeing opposite characters clash with each other. I also noticed a bunch of moments like these. Heimerdinger kicks Jace out of the academy at first, but eventually Jace ends up kicking him off the council. Or how Jinx was humming that song in the first scene in order to distract herself from all the dead people on the bridge, but later on we hear it after she kills everybody on the same bridge. That's the theme of people changing, which Echo also brings up in the show. It falls in line with the huge time skip after episode 3, which sees everyone and everything changing in one way or another. I kind of disliked the time skip at first. Probably the one thing I wanted to see the most from this show, knowing where a lot of the characters would end up from League of Legends, was their progression. You know, at least a couple of character beats throughout the years for the more important characters, but still skipping a lot of it. Something like that. But in the end, I think it was the right call. In retrospect, you can see that the characters change in predictable ways, and yet also in the moment it's still surprising and cool when they show up for the first time again. So it works. Though I dislike how they did my boy Echo. Like we said, he wasn't there much in the first act, and all we know about him is that he kind of did stuff during the time skip and became this way tougher guy. Also, Echo doesn't seem to dislike Heimerdinger in the slightest, which is very weird for how much he jumps the gun at any topsider, and Heimerdinger was literally the topsider. I know he founded the city and all, and both of them are inventors too, but he still had so much authority, and I can definitely see Echo resenting him for not making a change more than not. Victor was a character that I liked, but was very surprised when I saw just how many thought he was the best. I guess people like him for being relatable and overall the kindest character, you know, the only actual normal person in the show, but I've never found myself liking a character solely off of that. I'm not like, thank you, you're the most reasonable one, so you're my favorite. As a person, he's obviously best boy, that's undeniable, but as a character, not really, for me. I liked his and Jace's duality though, how Victor wanted to continue developing Kestek to save his declining health, whilst Jace gets caught up in the politics of it all. And yet, it's not that big a part of the story, Victor isn't really there a lot of the time. But don't get me wrong, the bridge scene is the single best scene in the show. The music, the perfect animation, the fact that he finally outran the boat in the background, a real one after not being able to catch up to the toy. The only thing I would have liked is, I guess once again, more build up to the moment. A couple of extra scenes where his disability is more of a factor, though not in any exaggerated way that seems obviously used to garner as much sympathy as possible. Just little details, you know? I also really liked how Victor prevents Jace's suicide in the last second and goes on to give him hope, saving him, and then Jace does the same later on for Victor. About Jace, he's kinda boring, but I really liked the moment he accidentally killed that kid. What I think went through his head was this: he realized most of these people don't choose to live a criminal life. They are born into it, or threatened into it, or simply don't have any other way to survive. This child, he didn't choose to be a part of this. But at the end of the day, Jinx is easily my favorite character in the entire show. Of course, her mannerisms and voice are a total 10 out of 10, though she's written so well as a character too. From the moment we first see her, we're all rooting, come on, do something right, make them respect you at least a little. Yet after the time skip, when we see her again, it's like, okay, let's go Jinx, wait, she's just really fucked up. She's even made out to be schizophrenic, hearing the voices of Milo, Clagger, Vander and Vi. It does seem a little over the top at first, but you have to remember that she was literally just a child when all of this happened. And she was probably always supposed to be a little mentally screwed up as well, and this is just what triggered it. Both when her parents died and when the three guys died in episode 3, killed by her, she didn't really seem to display much emotion. By the time she hugged Silco, she seemed to have completely forgotten what she'd done. And they did such a good job of portraying her mental issues, another thing a lot of fiction doesn't get right. Every single problem she had made perfect sense with her life experiences. Also, thank you for not romanticizing mental issues. The whole tone of the show is mature and obviously dark and sad, at least after episode 3, and it handles all those serious topics in a very real way. But anyway, Jinx. At first I thought she was angry with Vi the moment she saw Caitlyn, simply because Caitlyn is an enforcer, and while that is part of it, she seems to actually perceive it as some sort of betrayal, that Vi has a relationship outside that with Jinx. It shows how much worse her symptoms have gotten, but also how childish she has remained for all those years. And I love how off her eyes look for most of the time, and yet the moment she recalls the trauma, she briefly goes back to looking like that young girl once again. And the shit she says, all of the depraved monologue and dialogue, it's just the most memorable shit in the world. And yet, with all her mental issues, to an extent Jinx wants to be like this because no one ever looks down on her that way anymore. You know, it's not her that's afraid, but rather people are afraid of her, something Huck mentioned as well as his reasoning for using Shimmer. Jinx gets really frustrated when Silco thinks she's weak, so she simply kills all those people and steals the gemstone. A lot of the characters' mental states, however, are naturally very subtly presented. Vi, for example, is never shown until the final moment to be actively afraid of Jinx. She simply doesn't confront her on the bridge and leaves immediately. Silco is probably my second favorite character. He could have ended up betraying Jinx and admitting that he was using her all along, but no, he was really just trying to help a young girl that he sympathized with due to having experienced the same kind of betrayal with Vander. He is the only one that understands her issues, unlike Vi. In the final scene, she triggers Jinx's PTSD and Silco is the one that tries to make her stop. He is the only one that thinks she is truly perfect. In that and pretty much every scene, you can tell how much he cares about her, how frustrated he becomes when he isn't able to kill Vi and prevent her from meeting with Jinx. Silco is trying to protect her, but still secure his own safety in the meantime. In the end, he understands Vander for putting his daughter Vi before the entirety of Zone. He finally does, as at last Silco is able to do even more than him, to grant Zone independence forever. All he has to do is give up Jinx. But he can't. Finally, the dialogue in the entire show was really good, though I found Heimerdinger and Jace's conversations to be rather awkward and blandly written for some reason. But as a whole, most individual scenes are written very well. There are a lot of things that characters say and do and other little details which you know a writer came up with as they were going about their day and thought, oh my god, this needs to be in a scene. And that's it. I'm giving Arcane a high 8 to a low 9 out of 10, probably a high 8 for now, though I might change it in the description if I change my mind, but I doubt it, and it doesn't matter. Arcane is amazing, but one day we're going to get the Jin TV show with this animation, and that's going to be the most highest 10 out of 10 best show of the century ever. Just you wait. Hey, thank you for watching this video. I hope we never have to talk about anything related to League of Legends unless it's Arcane. Make sure to ring the bell, share, like, comment, watch my other videos and all of that. Check out my rating list if you're interested. It's where I score and write down my brief thoughts on anything and everything that I watch, play and so on. I also keep all my video ideas and what I'm currently working on there is linked on my channel. All the funny and unfunny posts alike can be found on Twitter. And as always, subscribe if you like this type of content and want to see more of it. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next video.